Speaking of Tracy, I got to ask you a question about Ron Wright. Dutch, in fairness, we weren't exposed to Ron Wright until we watched and reviewed Smoky. Um, Ron Wright is a fascinating figure in professional wrestling, a tremendous heel manager. This guy is just, he's gold on the mic. It's hard to explain. Um, Earlier you were talking about the angles and telling a story. The story he and Tony Anthony told when they denounced their Southern heritage and became Yankees in Smoky Mountain was great. You have any good stories maybe you've never told, or maybe you've told and I just haven't heard about Ron Wright? Because I really love Ron Wright.
Well,
I think he is underrated.
well, Ron and Don Wright were legends in East Tennessee, and I wasn't exposed to them as a kid. I was exposed to them later on when I started, and I worked in Knoxville for a while with Ron Fuller, and he had Ron and Don around, I think at the time, and I just heard stories more or less. I mean, these guys would go in towns, and they were just walking heat. I mean, if you hear them talk, they're really, really Southern. They were more Southern than those people up in the hills. And when they did an interview, to me, they were, like you said, they were gold because people actually hated those guys. I mean, they've had more riots, and I don't know which one. I think it was Ron in some town. And this used to be a serious, serious problem with wrestlers, is because you want heat, but you don't want that type of heat, what they call killing heat, and that's what they got. I think Don, was it Ron? It was the one that was cut by the guy cut him with
Oh,
a knife. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Actually,
Ron, right?
Ron Fuller
At
and Bo
Greenville,
James
Tennessee,
have
right?
both. Yeah, yeah. Ron Fuller and Bo James have both told me that story. Ron Fuller was there, Bo James wasn't, but Bo was telling me Ron Wright told him the story. Ron Fuller told me the story about the night he got sliced with a blade in the back and almost died.
Yeah. Well, it could happen. Uh, and this is one of the old stories that if you tell young guys today, they look at you like, get the F out of here. That shit didn't happen. The hell it didn't. I mean, there were a few hot spots in the wrestling profession where you had to be careful about how much hell. Uh, if you relate it back today, WWE guys can't get any heat. I was sitting in
None.
the dressing room one time. I was sitting in the dressing room one night, and I just offhandedly made a comment. I went, guys, I can get more heat walking the ring and stand in the corner and get more heat than you guys can working for it. Oh, that got over like a lead balloon. Oh, they got hot because they don't know what heat is. But he went into these right boys. They go in the ring and they would have to hold their work down to keep the crowd from rioting. They would have them in their. That's how. That's how they affected fans. I don't. It's even hard to imagine now anybody getting so mad in the crowd to actually attack someone. But there it was sort of what they had done. And of course, it all depends on, well, why can't, this is what wrestlers don't understand. I don't think the WWE guys understand. Oh, you can take a guy in the ring and have him win week after week after week after week. Well, what is there to dislike about this guy? If he's not, that's what they did with Bray Wyatt. He just won and won and won, but nobody give a shit because he never did anything to anybody that they really cared about. So if you wanted heat to Smoky Mountain, you just have to beat up beat up Ricky because they cared about Ricky Morton. So therefore, they want Ricky to exact revenge on you. That's how you get heat. If you beat up somebody they don't care about, the guy was. They actually the guy that got beat up gets more heat than the heel does because they're thinking, well, he shouldn't have went in there and knew he'd go get his ass beat. So there's no heat. And I think some people apparently have forgotten that in the course of time. But back to Ron and Don Wright, legends, absolute legends. Now Ron's passed away, right? Or both of them passed away?
Ron has passed away. I believe Don, as of us recording this, is still living.
And they were always super nice to me, super nice. And if you look at Ron and Don Wright, even back when they were wrestling, they never had muscular bodies really. And that was part of their heat, because every guy in that crowd thought that he could whip Don and Ron's ass. That was part of it. But anyway, they had a lot of heat. They're legends, and you'd never seen them before Smoky Mountain, right? You said.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up a Mid-South fan. We got world class in our area, but even then, I never saw Ron Wright. So when Cornette put Ron Wright on air, and he's in the wheelchair, and he's just gold getting that heat in the wheelchair, and then he ends up in the feud with Tracy Smothers, and Ron Wright and Tony Anthony, Dirty White Boy, denounce their Southern heritage, and they become Yankees. They actually burn the flag, the Confederate flag, in the middle of the ring, and my God, I mean, Tracy, they beat Tracy, they tie him up to the ropes. It's just storytelling. I mean, it was just gold. And Ron Wright talking about the hillbillies in the area and how he had to go up north to get a northern doctor to fix his cataracts because the dumb doctors in the South couldn't do it. And it's just, Dutch, it's lost. Nobody does this anymore. And it's a shame, because the WWE owns darn near every library. It's like, look, you got the encyclopedia, you got the Holy Grail at your fingertips, and you don't use it. It's a shame. And I look at a guy like Ron Wright, and I'm like, there's so much that a young wrestler or a young manager could learn from him or a Tony Anthony, and nobody does it. And that's what amazes me about, I know you, in your reference in WWE a lot, I think it was a blessing for the young guys that you got to meet up there so that you could tell some of those stories. Like I've heard Swagger talk about his time with you up there. That guy, he's young. He's much younger than me, and I'm young, but he would have never heard those stories like for you to share, and they need that, but they don't have that. They don't have a guy like Ron Wright. It's not that they don't have it. None of those guys know of guys like Ron Wright, and that's the tragedy. And I shouldn't say tragedy, because that's technically not, but that's the unfortunate part of wrestling.
It is a tragedy, because WWE guys, they only know one system.
Yes.
The WWE system. They don't know anything else.